Lynn, are you ready?
I am ready to roll.
So hello, everybody. It's 1:45, so we're going to go ahead and start. I'm Virginia Haynes, and I'm the state director for the Jobs for North Carolina Graduate Program, which is located in 8 counties in North Carolina. And I am thrilled to serve as our sort of tech host today. However, thrilled may not be the word we all use when this is over. But I do get the pleasure of introducing you all to Lynn Garrison, and in the reference to time, she's going to introduce herself, and I'm going to keep admitting people as they get here. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. If you haven't had a chance yet, please put your name and your affiliate connection in the chat bar. And Lynn, take it away.
Thank you so much, Virginia, and good afternoon, everyone. It is awesome to have you here with us. We're gonna have a very engaging time together and get some work done that hopefully will benefit you moving forward. As Virginia said, I'm Lynn Garrison. I am an executive coach and consultant working primarily in the areas of strategy and talent. I help organizations and individuals close the gap between where they are and where they want to be. I've worked with a number of CIS affiliates as well as the state office a bit, and I have so much respect and appreciation for the phenomenal work that each of you are doing in communities around the state. I'm glad you could join us for this session. I will tell you that this topic, Stop the Churn, is one that I work with so many clients on. In this busy, ever-changing world in which we live and work. Stop the churn. Don't we all want to do that? You know, stop that busyness that tends to sabotage us when we least want it. As a reminder, let me quickly mention our learning objectives for our time together today. The first is to identify the root causes of time-based challenges that you may face. The second is to learn best practices that you can put into use immediately. And the third is to create your own personalized action plan so that as you leave here, you know your immediate next steps that you want to choose to take. So let's get started. We're going to move fast. So if you have questions, I would ask you to put them in the chat box, and Virginia is going to keep an eye out for them and ping me, give me a heads up when I need to pause a minute for some questions. I want to be sure that we tackle any questions that you may have. So first, let's kind of get acquainted with what may be causing issues for us. Let's see the areas that can get in the way of using our time to best advantage. So I have a poll for you today as an icebreaker. There's 2 questions. The first one, you can choose as many answers as you would like. It's a multiple answer question, but pay attention to how many you choose, because the second question is going to ask you how many options you chose in the first question. So Virginia, could you launch our poll for us? You're muted, Virginia.
It worked 5 minutes ago.
It'll work. Fingers crossed.
Now it says I'm logged into another session.
Okay, well, let me see if I can do it.
Let me see if I can log out of everything.
Okay, now can y'all see a poll? All right, great. So remember, there's 2 questions. The first one you can answer choose as many as you would like, and then scroll on down. And there's a second question when you scroll. I'd love to have all of you participate in this. And it is anonymous, don't worry, you know, we're just gonna see the responses at the end. What gets in your way, preventing you from making the best use of your time? Choose as many as make sense for you. Got answers coming in. We want everybody to participate. all anonymous. We're getting there. We got about 67% participating at this point. We're going to go for 100%. I'm sure we can get there. All right, we've got most everybody in the hopper. I'm going to, if you want to take one more second and submit your answers, I'm getting ready to close the poll in just a moment. All right, I'm going to close the poll and let's take a look at what we learn here. Okay, I'm going to share the results. Hopefully y'all can see the results. Virginia, give me a heads up if you can, give me a thumbs up if you can see the results.
I cannot, but I could never see the poll. So let's see if anybody else can see the results.
Okay.
Yes, Tristan.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Okay, in that first answer, let's see, distractions and interruptions both get 74% of our responses. Emails close behind it at 48%. Meetings is close behind that, 41%. Pandemic, 33%. No time for self-care, 37%. Yeah. So many things are getting in our way. Now let's take a look at how many answers you chose so we can see how extensive this sabotaging is. So most of you, 59%, said, you know, you chose anywhere from 1 to 3 of the answers. 30% of you said between 4 and 6, and 11% of you said you chose 7 to 9 answers. So you can see there the impact that this is having on our time. All right, now I'd like you to think for just a moment about what could happen if you could make the best use of your time without those items getting in your way. What could happen if you could make the best use of your time? Take a moment in the chat box and just list one thing that could happen that you'd be able to do if those distractions, interruptions, email, meetings didn't get in your way. Put in the chat box one item. I'm going to call out some of them, and I just would love to have you participate in this. Exercise more, Tyke says. Don't we all wish? Oh, this is a good one from Dean. More strategic, less reactionary work. Absolutely. Deeper connection with students, more connection with students, meet with more students, work with more students, cross more things off the to-do list. Yes. More meditation. All of these are things that we could do if those distractions, interruptions, meetings weren't getting in our way. I would feel more peace at the end of the week without work being constantly on my mind. Excellent. More me time. Absolutely. So keep those answers coming in. Virginia, I just let someone in. I may have a hard time keeping up with that. So I don't know if you're logged back into our session yet, but I will try to keep an eye in case. Now, as we think about, you know, what you get out of eliminating those distractions, those interruptions, et cetera, let's think about the many reasons that we have for tackling the choices we make in how we use our time, because it really is all about choice. There's a quote that I'd like to share with you. It is by Alice Walker, who was the first African-American woman to win the Pulitzer Prize for fiction for her novel, The Color Purple. She seems to capture the essence of this best. Let me share my screen and share this quote with you. Hopefully you can see that. Look closely at the present you are constructing. It should look like the future you are dreaming. I love that quote. Look closely at the present you are constructing. It should look like the future you are dreaming. We are in control, and we have choices that we can make. Now, our lives seem to be moving faster and faster. The world seems to be moving faster and faster, changing exponentially, much faster than we probably ever could have imagined, especially with the pandemic. It seems like the pandemic has made the speed of change that much faster, while at the same time interjecting completely new levels of anxiety and uncertainty into our lives and into our work. All of that can translate into a workday and life that can feel out of control. Sometimes it feels never ending, not enough time to think, not enough time to reflect and act on what matters, not enough me time, as one of you said. Busyness and endless demands get in our way and sabotage our achieving the impact that we desire. So people talk about time management, but in reality, time is finite, 24/7. That's what we get. That's all we get. So thinking we can manage time is false. We don't get to add hours or add days to the week. What we can manage, though, is our focus. Where we choose to place our focus, to place our attention, we can manage our choices in how we use our time. Now, you may say, no way, I'm already doing everything I possibly can do to manage my time. There's just not anything else that I can do. So I would ask you in our session today to dream with me a little. Open up your mind and think about new ways that perhaps you can make different choices. With that open mind and a willingness to test some possibilities may over time make a tremendous difference for you. As the title of the workshop said, I have 7+ ways to share with you as we dream about a better way. So I'm going to share my screen and begin showing these to you. Number 1, it's about focusing on what matters most. This is huge, and it can change the whole structure of our day, focusing on what matters most. Let's do an activity to think this through a bit more. This, in fact, will form the foundation of an action plan that you may create for yourself as you leave today. Grab a sheet of paper. Any sheet of paper will do, whatever you have nearby, and a pen. And we're going to do a quick activity. It's one that you will likely want to refine after our session. But for now, just go with the flow and what comes top of mind, and then know that you can refine it, you can perfect it after our session today. It's called the 3 R's. And it really is thinking about what is required of me, what gives me greatest return, and what is most rewarding. So on the piece of paper that you have grabbed and your pen, make 4 columns. Make 4 columns on your page. Remember, this is not perfect. You're going to be in handwriting. It's just to get us started here. Make 4 columns, and it should look something like this. The top of this, the far left-hand column should read ideal. The next column, what is required of me? Maybe you just write required ? And this middle column is what gives me greatest return. So maybe in that middle column, you write greatest return. In the fourth column on the far right, what is most rewarding? Most rewarding ? So individually, we're going to do some individual work here and then go into breakout rooms. But individually, I'd like you on your piece of paper where you've made these 4 columns, I would like you to think about what is required of you in your job, in your profession, in your role. What is required of you? And think of categories. I've listed a couple here just to give you some ideas of what I'm talking about. Team direction or team development, program management, volunteer recruitment. And you can include bullets within those if you choose, or you can refine that later. But just go again with what comes top of mind, what matters most, and list those as categories under what is required of me. I'm going to pause and give you a couple of minutes to do this. This is individual work. It will lead to your action plan. Categories of work that's required of you. Now, once you've done that, move to that second column. What gives me greatest return? Out of those categories that you listed, put a check mark by the one or the ones that give you greatest return, the greatest return on your investment of time, energy, and resources. And then I want you to consider what is most rewarding to you personally. What fuels you? What energizes you? What do you find most rewarding? And put a check mark by the one or ones of those categories that you find most rewarding, most fueling for you. Now, here comes what might be the hard part. Out of the categories that you have listed, in the far left-hand corner where it says ideal, the far left-hand column where it says ideal, I want you to list ideally what percentage of your time during the workday or the work week would you want to spend on that particular category. In an ideal world, if you had your druthers and you could choose how you spend your time, how you focus your attention, how you focus on what matters most, what percentage of time would you assign to each of those categories? Now you'll see the reason why I said this doesn't have to be perfect for our time together today. This can be something you refine later, because you'll want to spend some time thinking about what are those categories that are required of you. There may be like administrative things that maybe just didn't pop in your head. Maybe you need an administrative category, but hopefully it's going to have a smaller percentage of time. Hopefully what's come to your mind are those things that matter most, those categories that matter most. So when you refine this later, you're going to want each of the ideal percentages to total 100. But you may have to flex it a bit to make that work. But again, remember, you're working with the ideal. If you could ideally choose how you spend your time during the work week, what percentage of time would you allocate to these categories? Now, you've spent a little bit of time thinking about this individually. I would like to now invite you to share in breakout rooms with a partner. Virginia, are we going to do pairs or triads? And you're muted.
We're actually going to do triads because we've got 37 folks.
Terrific. So Virginia is going to set up our breakout rooms. And what you're going to do when you teleport into a breakout room, I'm going to give you 10 minutes. And what I want you to do is I want you to share with each other the category that matters most to you and why, and then share the percentage of time that you indicated ideally you would want to invest in that category and why. So you're going to share with each other the category that matters most to you and why, and then share the percentage of time that should be invested in that category ideally and why. Any question? And if you don't have your camera on, I would encourage you to turn on your camera as you do this small group work so you can see each other. Introduce yourselves to each other if you don't already know each other, and then share that top category that matters most and what percentage of time you would allocate to it. So Virginia, when you're ready, you can open up the rooms. And Virginia, I did not choose to join a room. Virginia too, I am timing us and I will broadcast a message, and I can see it. I've got it up on my screen. I'll broadcast a message when there's 5 minutes remaining. And then I'll tell you when to close the rooms, and that will give them 1 minute to leave.
Okay.
But
I'm sorry about the polling mix up.
That's okay. I was able to bring it up. Again, that making me co-host helped us to alleviate any particular issue.
I do not have a single other thing open, so I don't know what in the world.
Who knows?
10 minutes earlier.
Who knows? You know, that is the mystery of technology.
Yes. So most of our rooms do have 3 people assigned.
A few have 2. Yep. And that's fine. A couple people have not joined rooms, and maybe they'll come back in and join. I don't know. They may have stepped away.
Right. When I was doing that, in my ideal time, I would spend less than 5% of my time looking at data. But right now, while we're getting everything entered and our new folks engaged, it's about 50% of my time.
How much? 50, did you say?
Yeah.
Wow. What would you say is the most important category to you? What matters most?
Matters most is to me is being available to the 8 people I supervise.
So team supervision, direction, development. Yep.
Yeah. But then I need time to research and explore and share ideas with them, which hopefully as the data gets entered and we get that straightened out, I'll be able to spend more time on that. We have 2 folks who were just hired a month before the pandemic closed the school. So this is their first year of really having a real teaching experience with the program. So, and following up with kids that they know before they were trying to find kids they didn't even teach themselves. Right. So, which is making it much more successful. But in the real world right now, we're also doing a bunch of grants. And so the data has to be right for me to be able to pull it and say, you know, you really just have 1 kid with an IEP? Really?
Right.
At 17 last year.
Right.
Really just have 1. So the JAG database has a tremendous amount of data at the touch of a fingertip. So that part is nice. And now I'm still learning how to make those reports work perfectly. So hopefully in the next month or 2, that data thing will be very low on the time totem pole.
Yeah, hopefully. Now, what the category that matters most, working with your direct reports, what is the ideal percentage of time that you would want to be able to spend during the work week doing that?
50% of it.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah. They're teaching at different times. 7 of the people have classes in the morning. And then one of our teachers only teaches in the afternoon. That's where the principal put that in the schedule. So
Right.
It's really difficult to get the whole group together. So it's 2 group meetings each time we do that. The individual meetings are spread out all over the day for that same reason. I would like to have 50% of the day availability to them, researching things to share with them, that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
and that will get there.
Yeah.
One of the things that will start taking up time is the employer engagement, trying to connect with statewide businesses, and just because I'm in Hendersonville, and to drive to the other end of the state is a 6-hour drive. That's
Right.
me in the car will be the most time consuming thing next 2 weeks.
Right. I understand.
I agreed to stay at least till halftime of the Wallace Rose Hill ball game next Friday night. So
That's great.
that will be 5.5 hours of driving home after the first quarter.
That's tough. That really is. That is tough.
That's a point of pride of that school, and they are fantastic folks down there to work with. So I can do that. I might nap in the afternoon, but I'm going to the football game.
I understand. I have a question for you related to the workshop. So do people have a way of getting the slides afterward if they want them, or how does that work? Should I?
If you will share them with Allison, they'll be available for everybody.
Okay, perfect. I will do that.
Yeah. What I don't seem to have, and I need to figure out how to get, is the evaluation thing, so I can post it in the chat.
Well, now would be a good time for you to figure that out.
Yeah.
I do not know.
It's on the registration page, so I'll get it right now and copy it. We have another
somebody joining us. Yeah, I just added them. We'll have to let them know to just
hang out.
Probably hang loose at this point, maybe. Kaylee? Kaylee, if you can hear me, we are in breakout rooms right now. They will end in about 3 minutes. If you want to just hang loose until then. We'll be bringing everybody back into the main room in about 3 minutes. I could assign Kaylee to a breakout room. Should I do that, Virginia?
I think
at this point, just wait.
Yeah, she can hear the discussion and catch it.
Okay. So assign her now or not?
I would not. You're down to about 2.5 minutes.
We're kind of close. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have the evaluation tool now, so.
Oh, good. Wonderful. You'll do that at the end. Perfect. Kaylee, I'm glad you can hear us. You might put your name and affiliate relationship in the chat box would be great. We asked everyone to do that at the beginning. That'd be great. Brunswick, terrific. On the coast.
Hi, Suzanne. We're about 1 minute away from closing a breakout room. So if you will just hang out and maybe put your name and your affiliate in the chat room,
Okay.
everybody be back now in about 45 seconds.
All right, sorry for joining late.
It's all right.
Virginia, I'm closing the rooms now.
Okay. Here they come. This is so awesome part of technology.
You know, breakout rooms are great. It's just nice to have some time to discuss with colleagues, things you're working on. Welcome back, everyone. We'll wait just a second to give everybody a chance to join back in. All right, welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a good discussion around, you know, what matters most to you, what category, what top category is required of you, and what percentage of time you would assign to that. I would encourage you, I mentioned earlier that getting it perfect right now in the midst of a workshop is probably not feasible, but I would encourage you to spend just a little bit of time after our session or first thing in the morning, sometime when you've got some quiet time soon, don't put it off, to really flesh this out and really identify those categories of work. Normally, people will have 4 to 5 categories. You don't want to have 10. That probably means you can collapse them into a fewer categories. But generally, 4 to 5 categories with the ideal percentage of time you would assign to those that would total 100%. And then the next step is to see how it works out in real life so that you can identify if there's a category of work that you ideally want to spend 30% of your time on, but you can only spend 5% of your time on it, then that's a good sign that it's time to look at where you're focusing your attention and where you're focusing your time. So hopefully this will be a tool that will help you gauge that and over time make some shifts so that you can focus more on what matters. So I'm going to share my screen again and go to, I'm going to go to the number 2 tip that I have for you. Here's the activity, and I'll make certain that Allison Jordan has these slides so that she can share them with each of you. Here's the number 2 way that we can make the most of our time, and that is do what matters most when you are at your best. So this is about when you do what matters most. Too often, people who are morning people who are fresher in the morning and just really can spend some time in deep work, too often they get sucked into the email hole, that rabbit hole that can just eat up all of your time. I would encourage you, if you're a morning person, if you're freshest first thing in the morning, focus then on what matters most. Leverage your fresh perspective, your energy level on what matters most, and save the email for a time when you are kind of on the downhill run with your energy, just not as energetic as you are when you're freshest. Now, if you have to check email first thing in the morning, that's fine, but do it for a finite period of time. Give yourself maybe 10 minutes just to do a quick check of the email to be sure there's nothing urgent in there. And then again, if you're a morning person, if that's when you're freshest, spend a good chunk of time on what matters most. If you're an afternoon person, then block your calendar for that window of time in the afternoon when you can focus on what matters most. Do that deep work when you are at your best. The third way is to set boundaries. Be willing to say no. Again, we're focusing on what matters most. So in order to do that, we have to set some boundaries. So I know how hard this is, but this is an example where your 3 R's activity can be especially helpful. If you receive a request, for example, that falls outside of what's required of you, think carefully before you take it on. Perhaps there's someone else on the team who would be a better fit for that assignment. Or perhaps it's an example of project creep or mission creep, and saying no for now makes the most sense. Or perhaps it's boundaries around what time of day you're going to read or send email. Maybe you make a new commitment that you're not going to spend your personal time, your evening time, your weekend time sending or reading email. Set boundaries. Learn to say no. I recently coached a woman who just simply couldn't say no. She thrived on being helpful to people, so she spent all of her time being helpful to others, but having a hard time getting her own priority work done. That left her stressed out, burned out, and when she would finish an event, she would have helped so many people that she literally had to just take time off afterward, even if it wasn't the best time for her to take a vacation, because she had nothing left. She had nothing left to give the organization. So what she did is she clarified her role. She worked with her supervisor to clarify her role and draw some boundaries around her role. Rather than being helpful to everyone, she clarified and gained clarity about her role and what mattered and how to say no when she was asked to do something that fell outside of the boundaries of her job. Remember, every time you say no, you make room for a yes that really matters. Setting boundaries makes a huge difference. Now, I'm going to turn off the slides because I really like to see your faces, but let me give you the number 4 way to make better use of your time. 4 and 5 are very similar. Number 4 is plan each day before it starts. So maybe think ahead of time about those 3 top things that you must get done that next day so you can focus on what matters most. Number 5 is similar. Schedule your top priorities first. Schedule them, put them into your calendar. If you have a project you're working on and there's a key component that you need to get done this week, schedule it. You know, when I began prioritizing my day, my productivity increased exponentially. And when I began scheduling or blocking time on my calendar for those top priorities, I found I could focus on what matters. Number 6, turn off distractions when doing what matters most. So put in the chat box what distracts you. I know a number of you on the poll at the beginning marked distractions as something that is an obstacle for you. So put in the chat box. Let's see what you say. What are some of the distractions that get in your way during the course of the day? I'd love to see them and share some of them here. Put in the chat box one distraction. Phone ringing, requests from colleagues, walkie-talkies for communication, that thing goes off all day, unexpected visitors, impromptu calls with other management team members to discuss a variety of topics, other requests that come in, emails with requests for information, TikTok when overwhelmed, colleagues putting out fires, teachers coming in to talk or staff requesting things, phone, emails. Oh, I love this. Newborn twins, the most blessed of distractions. You know, we really can't turn off those newborn twins. That isn't what we're looking to do, Kenyatta. So actually, it was Colin that said that. Kenyatta gave you a heart. I love that. So when you can, turn off distractions. For some people, those notifications that pop up on the screen distract them, and there's ways to turn those off in your computer. If you're working on what matters most, if you're doing that deep work, if you can, maybe you could post something to say, you know, check with me in an hour or something. If there's anything that you can do, for those of you with an office, close the door. I know we try not to close the door any more than we have to, but when you're really focused on deep work on what matters most, any way that you can turn off distractions will help you. And number 7 is really important. And I often have people just laugh in my face when I say it. They say, oh, there's no way we can ever do that. But it's so important. And when they figure out a way, it really makes a big difference. So here's number 7. Create margin in your day for thinking and reflecting. How often do we say there's no time to think? There is no time to reflect. There is no time to look ahead. There's no time to look at the last week to see what I forgot. There's no time there's no margin. There's no white space in my calendar. Create it. That's the only way it will ever happen, is if you create it. Time when you can reflect on the past week, when you can look ahead to what's coming. Time when you can consider what you're missing, to keep up with trends in your area, to think about what connections you need to make, what relationships need to be built, how to best start that new project that landed on your desk. Margin. Now, when I say create that time, I have found really the only way to create that time is to block it on your calendar. And I have clients who have told me that morning is the first thing in the morning is their best time to think. So I've encouraged them to block a period of time first thing in the morning that is their margin time. Call it what you like. Call it margin, call it planning, call it hold, whatever you want to call it, but block that time. Maybe it's an hour first thing in the morning. Maybe it's an hour right after lunch. Maybe it's an hour at the end of the day. But make sure that you create that margin so that no longer do we say, there's no time to think. The only time I can think is on my personal time, weekends and nights. Create that time, that margin, that white space in your calendar by blocking it. Now, I called this work session 7+ ways. And I've given you 7 ways, but I haven't given you the plus. So here's the plus. What will you let go? We've talked about best ways to make the most of your time and increase your impact and your influence. What will you give up in order to do that? We can add and add and add and add until we get completely used up and burned out without letting go of things that no longer matter or that fall outside of our boundaries. We can't reach for those things that matter most. So what will you let go? Make a note right now on that piece of paper that's in front of you, right at the top. I will let go of, and fill in the blank. I will let go of, fill in the blank. Now, I know this is easier said than done, but remember, we all have a set amount of time available to us. What we do with it is our choice. What you do and what you don't do determine your level of success, impact, and influence. Highly successful people are experts at managing their time and their priorities. So what will you do as a result of this session? What will you do as the result of this session? And I would add and say, remember that even tiny steps can lead to big impact. There's a book that I love. It's called Atomic Habits. It was written by James Clear, very popular book. It's been on the New York Times list for I don't know how long. In that book, James Clear shows how tiny steps lead to remarkable results. Even improving just 1%, while it's not particularly noticeable in the beginning, done consistently over time compounds. In fact, James Clear says in this book, he shows how just 1% improvement each day for 1 year results in your ending up 37 times better at the end of the year. 37 times better just by improving 1% each day. Now, as we get ready to close, I want to put up on the screen the 7 ways so that you see those again. I know I went through them quickly. So if you want to jot them down, and I'm going to share the slides with Alice and Jordan so that she can find a way to get them to each of you. But here are the 7+ ways. And I would ask you again to write down, what will you do first? What will you do today? What action will you take today to begin this journey? And then what will you do tomorrow? And that is how you build your action plan. Remember the 3 R's, remember the activity that we did at the beginning. That's your resource. When you get a request, does it fit within what's required of you? If not, what else might happen with it? Is there someone else who would view that as an opportunity? Or is it just not needed? Start your action plan and remember the Alice Walker quote that I shared at the very beginning. The present you are constructing should look like the future you are dreaming. Thank you. And I'd be happy to take any questions that you have. We certainly have some time for questions. Virginia, you can either have people unmute or you can share questions that pop up.
Lynn, thank you so much. I have posted the evaluation form in the chat. And I just have been sitting here thinking I need to do all those things. And that with the working from home, those of us who are working from home have that added distraction of the things at home we need to do. Move the laundry, start the dishes, make the beds. But the folks at schools are being asked to do so many extra things now because there's no substitutes in the building. There's nobody in the bus parking lot. Your time at schools and at home is different than it was before the pandemic. And so just these ideas of organizing that time and trying to stick to it to save some mental time for ourselves and to being able to say no was really insightful. And I really appreciate your points. And if you have questions, please put them in the chat bar and please make sure you do the evaluation. And we'll give a couple seconds for that.
Virginia, if I could add one thing, I really appreciate the perspectives that you shared. Within your team, I know you get requests that come up that the time that you spend at schools is very different these days. Perhaps at a team meeting, you could brainstorm ways of better managing your time, better focusing on what matters most. And maybe in team meetings, you could come up with strategies for dealing with those things that pop up that have to be dealt with.
Thanks, Lynn. And so I know that some of you are slipping off to a DEI watch party that begins in about 9 minutes. So I want to make sure that you all have a chance for a bathroom break. If you are taking a longer break, the next sessions begin at 3:30. And so you all will get a little bit longer break. But Lynn, we really appreciate your time and those great 7 tips plus, because we all could use them, because you are looking at 30 very overworked people who, I'm sure when you said the time after work hours to reflect is what's happening with everybody on the screen. So I love that idea of maybe blocking it off on my calendar. So thank you again. If we don't have any other questions, y'all slip off to wherever you need to be. If you'd like to stay and ask Lynn questions, she's going to be on for about 8 or 9 more minutes. And thank you all for attending this workshop.
Thank you.